licensing fee increase. I do want to mention that the 2011-2013 state operating budget includes an increase to licensing fees. Obviously, this is not good news for anyone, but you do need to be aware of this. You'll see on the slide what the annual fees will be beginning on July 1st. It's $30 for family homes, and then $125 base rate for centers with a $12 per child capacity fee for all children above the first 12. This funding goes into the state general fund. This is not funding that comes to DEL directly. And, we know this is a tough increase, and these are tight times. It was one of many very tough budget decisions legislators had to make this year to balance the budget for the coming biennium. So we do want to make you aware of that, although it's certainly not news we want to share with you, but you do need to know. And so here on this slide, in a nutshell, you can see the timeline for some of the things that we talked about tonight. You'll see that July 1st, 2011 is when those dollars come due that we've talked about. The one-time $45 fee for the portable background check registry, which will give you more flexibility as a licensed provider, and then the licensing fee increase will also go into effect at that time. July 22nd of this year is when 3 of the bills, the licensing bills that we touched on, go into effect. That's non-expiring licenses, unlicensed child care, and then the immunization exemption bill that we pointed you to the Department of Health website for more information. July 1st of next year, 2012, is when the portable background check registry is created and goes live. And that's when fingerprint checks for those newly applying for a background check goes into effect as well. Fall 2011 is when WAKID begins voluntary and then mandatory the following year. And then July 1st, 2013 is when all employees need to have their background check on file in the portable background check registry, as that's going to be the registry of record moving forward in our state. So now we're going to move on to questions. Let me pull up the screen where we can see the questions. And if you can just give us one moment just to sort through these questions, and then we'll be back on. And reminder, if you do have a question, feel free to type it in, and we will take a look at it and get back to you. So just give us one moment while we sort through these.
Okay, folks, we've got a number of questions up, so we're just going to take them in the order that they came in. One of the first questions is from Dale Mayberry, and the question is, are there plans for the wage ladder to return? Okay, and the basically, the funding for the Career and Wage Ladder was eliminated from the budget during this past legislative session. This was done as part of the legislative activity, and it wasn't based on a request from DEL. So we really can't address whether there are any plans for it to return. Currently, there just isn't any funding for Career and Wage Ladder to move forward. And absent that authority from the legislature, DEL really has no ability to plan or reestablish it. One of the next questions was from Patricia Vargas, curious about how many are viewing the session this evening and wanting to know how many providers joined us online. And it's been varying a little bit since the start of the session, between about 78 and 80 providers have joined us, as well as the DEL staff members who are here at Dell and also away from the building as well.
And this is Amy, and I would just remind folks that we know not everyone can join this live, but we are recording this, and we'll plan to post it online on our website under the provider section in the coming days.
So the next question is from Adina Wasson, and the question was, do we have to pay again if we already have one? I'm just going to kind of presume that you're talking about having a license, a child care license, and the answer to that is that you're going to pay the same fee period that you are in right now. So as we move through to the expiring dates of licenses that you have hanging on walls right now, what we'll be doing is issuing a new license in its place that will have an issue date but will have no expiration date, and it will look different, and we'll have the label on it that it's a non-expiring license. So it's not going to cost you any more for the non-expiring license. You'll still have to pay the fee on the same annual basis. And as Amy mentioned before, the fees were increased during this legislative session. The next question is from Lori Hope. Hi, Lori. Will the new funding from the state and federal increases be used to help lower the suggested $45 fee to start the House Bill 1903 background registry? And the answer to that is no. The additional funding that came to the Department of Early Learning in the form of additional federal funds from CCDF and state matching funds that have to go in to draw that money down from the federal government. The great majority of that money is what they call discretionary funds, and the legislature earmarked all of those discretionary funds for the ECAP program, for additional slots in ECAP. The remaining funds are in targeted and mandated areas of expenditures, and it doesn't allow DEL to exercise that option at all. The $45 registry is, for the fee for the registry, is simply to provide the startup, and that was included as part of the bill. It was the intent of the legislature that fee be charged, and the fee only be set at the point where it fiscally will support the startup. It's not intended to be something that is going to create an account that it sustains. All it does is get the project up off the ground. Next question is from Karen Ekdahl. The question is, with regards to fingerprints, will people who've been cleared through the public school system be able to use that clearance if they go to work in a child care center? This is an area where we are making some efforts to establish some changes. There's one key thing around sharing background checks that most people don't know, which is that the FBI background check has a very strict limitation on sharing that information. The background check actually, when it comes back to DEL, says that it's prohibited from sharing that information. In fact, the only person who can really have that information is the individual who the background check is being performed on. So the first step for us in the next session is we will be working on agency request legislation around the background checks. We had a similar bill that moved through the session that allows sharing of FBI checks between DSHS and DEL, and we are already in progress on developing bill language for the next session that will deal with sharing background checks between OSPI, the ESDs, DSHS, and DEL. And so that has to go into place first before we can make it operational to allow the fingerprints to become more portable. There are a couple of computer systems in place, one that's in place between DEL, DSHS, and the State Patrol, and then OSPI has their own database that is standalone from that, and that's an area where our IT departments will have to talk. But again, first we have to get the FBI's blessing and it in statute for us to be able to share the information. See, the next question is, will DEL address, this is also from Lori Hope, will DEL address unlicensed providers that are identified? How much proof is needed to prove there is unlicensed care taking place? Of course, DEL is charged with licensing child cares and investigating or inspecting situations where allegations of unlicensed care is occurring. Not every instance where folks believe that unlicensed care is occurring actually results in a finding of unlicensed care. That can be due to a number of reasons. Sometimes it's family members who are taking care of children. Sometimes it's friends who are taking care of children. And as long as they are compliant with the state statutes, they're not required to be licensed. Certainly if the department's licensors determine by a standard of preponderance of the evidence, which is that it's more likely than not occurring that unlicensed care is happening, they will take action. There are some additional steps that we have been taking in terms of modifying the letters that go out. They are much more robust and have more information and emphasize not only the civil penalty that was mentioned, which is $150 a day for homes and $250 a day for centers, but it also mentions the fact that in state law that it's a misdemeanor to provide care without a child care license. A question from Debbie Henderson: do parents also have to do the background checks? I'm not really certain in what situation you would be asking about the parents doing background checks. The general answer to that would be no. They do not have to do background checks. Unless the parents were functioning in a role like an assistant or a teacher. The key there is whether or not they have unsupervised access to children. The next question from Nicole Chaudhry, and the question is, will licenses that expire after July 22nd, 2011 still expire? And do we have to reapply for a new license if our license expires after that date? And the answer is to that is no. The license, as long as you have a full license, you're not on an initial license, your full license as of July 22nd will become a non-expiring license. And as I mentioned previously, as the licensors move to monitor on that 12-month for centers or 18-month for family homes, then they will be issuing you a new license. And if you have a license that shows an expiration and the licensor just hasn't gotten out there yet, state law indicates that if your license has not been renewed or addressed on the action of the state, it continues until the state takes action on the license. So there's no worries there. Just give us here one moment. We're just kind of sorting down through some more questions.